Good evening. Welcome to Reflections on Granby. Today's date is February 10th, 2012. Our guest tonight is Lila Innes, an 84-year-old, 58-year resident who lives on Wells Road in Granby. She was born in 1927. She has 4 children, and she's joining us here tonight to share her story. Thank you for joining us. My name is Mike Malloy, and I'll be your host this evening. Hello,
okay,
Lila. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Well, thanks for coming out on this.
Did you just say I was born in 1947?
1927.
Oh, I thought you said 47.
Well,
okay.
if I said 47, you got 20 extra years to go.
Okay. No,
so,
this is fine.
Yeah. If you, why don't we start out? First of all, I'd like to just mention to our guests that our guest tonight was a librarian for many years in Granby. And so many of you may know her, but we're going to start out with the beginning and talk a little bit about her history before we get into what she's done in Granby. Lila, you were born where?
I was born in Bridgeport, but we lived in Stratford, Connecticut. I've always been in Connecticut.
Now, those two towns are right next to each other.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Stratford was a farming town when I was born, but it is more like Bridgeport now, only a little nicer.
Yeah.
It's
well, Bridgeport was quite the city in its day. I think we've had a few other guests.
It was. Yeah. In fact, when my grandfather came, about 1880, he bought his property from P.T. Barnum.
Okay.
P.T. Barnum owned a lot of property in Bridgeport, and my grandfather bought a lot of property from him. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that was where he started, right? P.T.
Yes.
Barnum?
He was in Bridgeport.
Wow. So you grew up in Bridgeport.
I grew up in Stratford.
You were born in Bridgeport.
Yeah.
What are your earliest memories of Stratford?
It was beginning to grow. There were probably 15 or 20,000. Well, 15, a little bigger than Granby at the time. But we were surrounded by a farm, which both of my brothers at various times had worked at. And I loved going down to the farm. I've always loved, that was my beginning to outdoor life and everything. I'd go down and visit with the farmer and follow him when he plowed the fields in back of us. He had one big white horse, and I just loved the outdoors there. And then our own house seemed like a lot of property when we were there, but actually it was 3 lots. It's about 100 by a couple hundred feet, and my father had planted all different kinds of fruit trees and grapevines. He made his own wines and beer, and my mother canned and everything, and so it was just a nice farming kind of life we had. It was
so a pleasant childhood.
Very good, very good. My father died when I was 17 days old, but I had a wonderful mother who took care of me and my brother, who was 4 and a half at the time, and then I had an older sister and brother. They were 16 and 17 when my father died. Now, so my mother kept us together.
So you had other family that lived in the area, so it kind of...
Well, yeah, at the time.
Yeah.
It was...
Okay, so it's amazing when you think today, for people who know what Stratford's like today, to consider it was a farming community.
Well, my brother graduated from high school, then he started immediately working at Sikorsky's, and he was working right in with Igor and everything, because he was a very intelligent fellow. That they took him from high school, and my husband worked with him then later, and that's where I met my husband. So.
Oh, okay.
So we were married in 1950, and moved up to Manchester, and then came here to Granby. And
so Stratford, even though it was 15, 20,000 people or whatever it was when you were there, it was probably had a fairly developed school system and
very good. Yeah. I guess they have 2 high schools now. They had just the one when I was there, and they have several junior high schools, and everything is big now.
Any memories from your school days that you want to share, or anything that you remember?
Well, especially we walked to school all the time. No school buses.
Right. Were you close enough to? It was
quite a way. It was a good mile. Well, to the high school was a mile. It was probably a half a mile to the elementary school. But we walked every day and didn't worry about the things that they have to worry about today. When we walked, or the neighbors along the way knew us too, and
Right.
I think everybody watched over everybody.
It was a pretty tight-knit community, huh?
Yeah, it was very nice.
So you graduate high school, and how many siblings did you have? Just one brother?
I had two brothers. One is deceased now. I have a brother that's 89. My sister is 101.
Wow.
And then and my brother that died at 92. He would be 100 now. But,
Amazing.
anyway, I was the last of the four. So, that came in.
So your sister's how old?
101.
Wow.
Yeah. She's up in Maine, so I talk to her regularly and visit her. She's mentally fine.
That's great. Yeah.
So,
Okay, so you graduate high school in Stratford, and what's your next step?
yes, and then we moved up to, I worked at Tyler Roofing Company in Stratford.
Tyler?
Tylo Roofing Company,
okay.
and I started that when I was in high school. And right after school, I walked over there, and I worked in their mail room, and they had a 41 station wagon that I used because I had to take the mail to the post offices. And the station wagon was in pretty bad condition because boys had driven it during the war years there.
Okay.
And blame it on the boys.
Yeah, right.
And then in 46 they got a new Chevy, which I loved. And we were allowed to take the vehicles home at night because it was late till we went to the post office and everything. And so that was kind of a fun thing. But I think of the old station wagon. We had everything. In Stratford, under the viaduct always flooded when there was heavy rain. We got stuck in the water there at one time, and then up at the railroad station it caught fire one time. And what else? Something was wrong with the engine that it would always stop no matter where I was, and people were always good to me and would come over to help, and I could tell them just what they had to do to fix it. I could do it myself, but if a man came and wanted it, or a young fellow, I had to do it for him.
Yeah, right. Take advantage.
Yeah, and then I think of the time that we were on it was Golden Hill in Bridgeport, and it was a steep hill, and we were at the light, and the policeman was directing the traffic there. Oh yeah, it wasn't a light, the policeman directed the traffic, and I guess the car stalled then. So he says, put on the emergency brake. I said, doesn't work. So he says, just back over there. He's a little irritated with me. But I had all kinds of little experiences that were interesting to me. Anyway.
So this was just after the war?
Yes.
Right. So
yes,
the war
right
was
after
over.
the war.
And did you go to school at all anymore, or did you went right into the
Well,
work?
no. Well, I went to the community colleges and everything, but
They had community colleges.
But then, yeah. So
I thought that was a new invention.
no, and then we were here. I started volunteering in Granby at the Wells Road Library.
So let's just back up a little bit. So you're working at the Tyler Roofing Company.
Well, yeah, and then I got married.
So where did you meet your husband?
Soon we were married, we'd meet.
Where'd you meet your husband?
My brother brought him home.
A friend of your brother's.
Little puppy dog.
Yeah.
Now, at that time during the war years, all these fellows that worked there couldn't go home because of no cars, or they were from all over the country. The fellows that worked at Sikorsky's.
Okay.
Chance fought Sikorsky, and my mother was always good about everybody was welcome in our house. My brother was always bringing people home.
Right.
For dinners, special days or weekends or anything. And then there were a group of them that loved the outdoors, hunting, fishing, and that sort of thing. My husband was one. My brother was one. So he used to come home with my brother a lot, and a lot of the others did too, which I think most of them are deceased now too.
Okay, that was a few years ago.
Yeah, it was. I was back in the 40s. But they were all nice fellows, and they were always glad to get a good home-cooked meal.
I bet, yeah.
And everything, and So it was.
So your brother brought him home, and you took a liking to
he
him?
was around quite a few years before he realized I was a girl.
Oh, really?
Well, I was young when he started coming anyway. You know, he was still in high school and
So
everything.
you were just friends at
Yeah,
first?
yeah. They were friends, and I always went with them wherever they'd go, whether it be hunting or fishing or hiking or whatever. So
To tag along and grew
then,
up.
yeah. So then we dated a little bit and
Yeah.
then married. We married in the Congregational Church in Stratford, a beautiful big church down there.
What did your
And
husband
that's
do at the time?
He was
Working as
an
Sikorsky?
engineer at mechanical engineer and designer at Chance Vaught, and he also worked in the test lab. He worked on
Now, what's
one of his favorite things is the Corsair. He did a lot of work on the Corsair and testing on it when they were doing that down there.
Okay.
So.
Now were you married in Stratford, or did you?
Yep, in Stratford.
Okay.
We were married
At the
in
congregation.
Stratford.
And you, where'd you go from there? Did you buy a house? Did you rent? Did you?
We bought a little house in Manchester, a little house.
So you went from Stratford to Manchester?
Yeah, because Chance Vaught moved to Texas, and Sikorsky moved to Bridgeport, and he didn't want to go down to Texas. So he got a transfer. They were all these companies were part of United Technologies, or United Aircraft at that time.
Right.
So he got a transfer up to Hamilton Standard, which was at that time in East Hartford.
Okay.
And so then that was fine. We moved to Manchester, and he didn't have too far to go to work. But then Hamilton Standard moved up to Windsor Locks. They built the big building up there. Well, he didn't like the drive. Crossing that bridge in Windsor Locks all the time was a old bridge, and it always bothered him. The traffic would be lined up, and he'd feel the bridge going up and down there, and when a truck went by, and so he wanted to come to this side of the river, and that's when we looked around here and found this little house up in Granby, not the one we're in now, but up the street, and we moved there.
So you must have you were looking for a place to live. He was transferring to the new facility at Hamilton.
Yeah.
And what were your first impressions when who found Granby? Who went out looking for a house?
I think we just saw an ad in the Hartford Times or the Hartford Current, and came over here, and we talked with the agent, and we found the house. And at that time, we had 2 little children. My son was almost 2, and my daughter had her first birthday there the day after we moved there.
Why don't we share your children's names while we're...
Okay. Calvin was 2 years old,
Yep.
and then Nancy was a year younger than him,
Okay.
and she had her first birthday there. And at that time, we were further up Wells Road, up near Fern Hollow, and I remember the agent saying, and there were cows, it was all farms around there. And just down the road a little bit, he said, they're going to build a school down there. And I thought, this is an agent's talk, you know, because I had little children. Because it was just a field with cows in it. I couldn't imagine a school being there, but that's where Wells Road School is now.
Okay.
And they started it the next year.
Yep.
And so that's when our kids went there to all of them.
So, what were your first impressions of Granby, other than the immediate?
I loved it because it was like Stratford, only a little, maybe a little more farmy now.
Right.
Than because Stratford was beginning to build before or about the time I left, or maybe right before I left. The farm that we were surrounded by had been sold, and all houses were being built there.
So it was a building.
That was sad. To me, it was sad to see where I had gone and picked these beautiful quartz stones out of the fields, or find Indian relics and things, and then see all these houses there, and the brooks that I loved. I was always attracted to water, little brooks, and then there was beautiful ones through the farm down there that had these lilies, and there was an old broken bridge down there that I loved to go down to, and I just hated to see that changing. And when I came up here, I saw the brooks and the farms and it didn't take too long to meet a lot of nice people that are still my friends, and
That's great.
it was a friendly little town, and I just loved it, and I still like the farming. I hate to see developments around here too.
Well, it's nice to see them protecting farmland.
Yeah,
they have quite a bit.
So much, and
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful.
Now, you came. What year did you buy your house in Granby? You said it was
1954.
54. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was right in the middle of the post-war building boom.
Yeah. It was. They were just starting in town here to build at the time, because across from us where Fern Hollow and Sawmill and all that is now, that was all. I think it was probably Mr. Dewey's part of his farm, because there's a pond over there. It's Dewey's Pond, and I don't think he had any cows at the time, but my husband used to walk through there with the children, not Nancy so much, but with Cal, and well, we all did. We all go through there, and I just remember these beautiful big ferns in there. Well, there's Fern Hollow, so that's why. And there was a nice pond, and the stream came through there. And I think the stream's pretty much all piped under now and everything. So that's changed a lot.
So you had two more kids.
Then I had two more. Yeah, I had Carol in 58 and 56, and then Janet in 58. So
your children were the classic baby boomers.
Yep. They were all close together. Yeah. So they were, how were they? I don't know, 2 years and 5 months apart, each of them anyway. Except Nan and Cal were 11 months apart.
So what did you do? Your husband was working at Hamilton. Other than raising 4 kids, I mean,
I did a lot of work. Well, eventually I got into Wells Road Library, and for 7 years I kind of ran that. That was a volunteer thing.
Okay.
And I worked with Cub Scouts and Brownies a little bit, or Girl Scouts, and then 4-H. And then at that time they had they had what they called the Well Child Clinic, and they needed drivers for that, and I would always drive kids to that. They took care of the children's teeth, and
where was that?
For shots. That was in town here. Kern School was built, I think, the year after Wells Road School, and they would have a lot down there.
So
I'd go around and pick up these kids that they didn't have cars. We happened to be a 2-car family, and not everybody was a 2-car family at that time.
Right.
So I loaded my kids in the car and everybody else's kids in there, and take them down to the clinic, and often a parent would go with them too, and I don't know, just all kinds of. I had plenty to do.
So they would provide. I'm kind of curious about that. They would provide like dental care for the kids, or was it medical? Or? Was the fluoride treatments they had for their teeth? Yeah, I can remember. What was it?
And then when the penicillin shots, they would give them, and I can't remember what else, but it seems as though there were other things that I.
So it was public health.
For. Yeah, it was.
So through your children, you got drawn into a lot of things in community.
Yeah. But we found plenty, and then we always had a big garden. Another friend of ours bought a big property down the road from us there. He was a bachelor friend, and we always had a garden down at his house.
Okay.
So I froze, I'm not freezing much at that time, a lot of canning of vegetables, and then eventually I did freeze. Always made our own bread, made our own root beer. I still have kids come to me now that are, well, the age of my children, in their 50s, and they'll say, "Oh, Mrs. Innes, I remember you making that root beer. That was the best root beer." They always remembered that, and it kind of pleases me, to be remembered for things I did for the kids.
When you were working at the Wells Road Library, you said?
Yeah.
That was a volunteer position?
That was a volunteer, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was a small library just in the hallway of the school.
Okay.
And the kids could come down and each take one book out. If they're real good, I guess they could take 2 books out.
Okay.
And if they didn't bring their book back from the week before, then they weren't allowed to take any books out. And I think they did the same thing in the other schools too.
So that you did while your children were attending the school.
Yes.
But, yeah.
Yes.
So what did you do? Where did you get your training? Is that where your training for a librarian came from? Is running?
Well, that was at the community college that I did a lot of that, and some of it was just learning for friends that I had friends that were librarians that helped out a lot too. And that's how I got into Wells Road, because this one friend, she got me into there working for her, and she liked me, and then I think she went to Cossett Library, and when she left, she made me take over Wells Road School Library.
Okay.
And then when she left, she went to a college to work in a library, so she made me go to Cossett Library. At that time, it wasn't like it is now that you have to have your big degrees and the town hires you and everything.
Right.
The board, their little board could say, yeah, she can work here, you know.
Okay. She handled this, we'll give her this job.
Yeah.
So what were your other 2 children's names?
Carol and Janet.
Okay, so they came along, so you had 3 girls and a boy.
And what?
3 girls and a boy?
Yeah.
Okay.
The boy's the oldest.
Okay.
And they all turned out fine.
That's good. It's because you were
happy as can be with them.
You were home watching them, keeping an eye on them.
I was thinking of them now too. The things that we'd have them do. This old fellow they had horses all the time too. So that was another reason for down the road. This man that owned the farm. Eventually, we got 2 pieces of property, 2 lots from him, which we still have, and the kids had horses, which they rode all the time, or ponies, horses and ponies. So they were busy with that all the time. My son Calvin worked up in Southwick at Putnam's farm for several years. I think he went there when he was about 14. Nancy always ran down the street where Eleanor Wells had her horse farm.
Right.
And Nancy had a horse of her own there, but which she could keep it a little cheaper there because she did a lot of work for Mrs. Wells, Eleanor Wells.
Okay.
And Carol and Janet, they had their horses and they kind of did their own thing. Carol was more into cooking and sewing and that sort of thing, but she did have her horse and enjoyed that. They belonged to Pony Club, and that was another thing I was involved in too, helping out a lot with that.
Pony Club?
Pony Club.
Okay.
That was in town. That was at Eleanor Wells's, and Paula Ray, Dr. Ray, lived across the street from Eleanor Ray, and they worked at too. So the horses were. They all ran the Pony Club anyway, and
sounds like it was a great place to raise kids.
It was.
Yeah.
It was, and
a lot going
they're
on.
all happy, and and that was when they started another thing, just for fun at home, tapping maple trees to make their syrup.
Wow.
And we cooked it on the kitchen stove. Well, eventually we were cooking it outside, and till this day, 3 of them. Carol is still the cook and the sewer, but my son is up in Maine. He retired from the state, and we have a camp up there which had a garage. It was like an old Model T garage. He has transformed that into a beautiful sugar house.
Oh, wow. And
he's tapped. Last year was the first year, and this year again, he'll be soon tapping all the trees there and making and selling them the maple syrup. And then,
so he carried that all the way.
Yep, from his childhood. And Nancy is doing it now, small time. She's doing trees at our house and at her house down in the center. So she's making the maple syrup. And then our daughter Janet is in Burlington, Connecticut, and she does just a few trees, just enough for themselves.
So you must have a few,
but still doing it. Yeah.
It must be fun to see your kids continue that. Yeah, after
it is. It's wonderful. And Janet still, she always loved chickens and the little animals and things, and she has chickens, and I think she still has a goose. I don't know, but she loves the animals and cats and the farming, the vegetable part of it. Yeah, they do. So
That's
I guess
great.
we did something right.
How many
I don't know.
grandchildren do you?
Just 4.
4, okay.
Just 4.
So you went through the whole school system with your kids in Granby, so you were very. What was your experience there? I mean, in that day, how did you feel that
Oh, I was pleased with it.
In a small town, sometimes it's difficult.
Yeah, I think they did all right there.
Okay.
That Calvin and Nancy went to Paul Smith's College up in Upper New York, and Carol went to Central Connecticut, and Janet did a lot on the computer to get her degree that way.
Okay.
So.
So
they all,
it worked out well
okay.
for the whole family.
Yeah.
So now what? Okay, now just a few questions about that time. What are the biggest changes from, say, the time you came to town and you first got involved to today? What would you? Is there anything that you think often?
Well, I don't know. Just the town growing, watching it grow.
Right.
The center of town here, the roads, and where Gay and Kellogg's store was, seeing that go, and then they built the new stores, and all those stores new. And but I still have pictures and good idea, both in my mind and on the on film, all the changes, and the different bridges, the way they've changed the roads. There were a lot of dirt roads when we came to town. A lot of these roads were partially paved, but then the rest was dirt. And then I think of the 55 flood, that was soon after we got here too.
Right.
And they changed a lot of bridges then. I know on Wells Road. My husband was working that day.
They were kind of forced to at that point.
Yeah. So everything was improved.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
So in that era, would you say that Granby has a kind of a unique flavor to it even now? It's a very kind of community-driven town.
It is. It's still a lovely town. I love it, and I love the people. I can go into almost any store in town, and there's somebody that I know.
I bet.
And then I meet kids that I did story hour for so many years. And these kids, and I have to add too that the East Heartland people were wonderful people too.
Yeah.
I had so many of them that came down to story hour with their kids, and I loved them, still do, and I still hear from them. Yeah, so many of these people.
Was there a connection between the schools back then? The high school? Where did the
with East Heartland? No. It was just a library. Yeah. They didn't have a library. Well, they had a very small one over on the other side of the reservoir in West Heartland.
Yeah, that was the split in that town.
It was easier for them to just come down the mountain to pass the library than to go all the way around the reservoir. So.
Get to know quite a few.
But it really was. And it's changed in that there's so much building now, but I'm pleased that so much land is being preserved and kept. Of course, I'm that kind of person that I'm still a farmer at heart.
Yeah. Well, you have fond memories of it. You always want to recreate what where you were happiest, right? I mean,
yes. Yeah. No, I don't care for cities and. I like to go once in a while, like to New York City. When I was down in Stratford, it was easy to just hop on the train and go down. For a couple $. We could get down to New York City, spend a day down there, and $2 was usually a round-trip ticket.
Okay.
So
it was quite an adventure.
Yeah, and we went on our own. I mean, my one girlfriend in particular that I still have. She's in a nursing home down in Meriden, but we grew up together since we were about 3 years old. We're still friendly. That's and
so let me ask you, what year did you start working at the Cossett Library?
1965.
Okay, so how many librarians did they have?
2 of us.
2, so you ran the whole show.
2 of us. Well, I ran it, but in a way I didn't want too much to do with the adult books, and there was a good librarian to do that. Okay. So that was her job, but I did the financial part and the children's room. Oh, okay. Because I love the kids.
So you saw generations of kids come through there.
I did.
I mean,
Yep, my little story hour kids are bringing I meet their kids.
Yeah, I bet,
Yeah.
So going back to that era, the late 50s, early 60s, when you were a librarian, what changes did you see in your clientele, for lack of a better word? Was there much difference between the youngsters of that era and the youngsters today, or when you retired, or what?
Well, I wouldn't know. I haven't seen them for about 10 years.
Right.
Unfortunately, I became ill with cancer, so I had to give up my job.
Okay.
But I was old enough to give it up anyway. Then.
All right, yeah.
But no, they were all good kids. They were all good kids. I don't. I had good story hours, and I loved the children, and I don't remember any big problems with any of the children.
Okay.
And I had a lot of children at that time. They have a lot more regulations now in the building. How many people can be in the building? How many can this or that? There were no regulations then. Okay. And I didn't mind signing up 30 kids for a story hour,
okay.
but if I signed up 30, I figured each time I'd probably have about 20. And I always enjoyed having a lot more than having a few. Yeah. I found out if I had just a few children, they weren't as active. They're more shy.
Yeah.
And but when I had a whole gang of them, there was always something going on. It was
they fed
exciting.
off each other.
Yeah. And me too. Maybe I was too much of a clown with them.
It sounds like you were doing something right. So they're kids of the mid-1960s to the 90s. They were kids.
Oh, they're all intelligent little children. I just have memories of little things they would say or do, and I'll remind them every now and then if I see them. They're grown up or in college, and I'll say, I remember you saying this or that.
Oh, that must be great. Yeah.
They just look at me and laugh.
The librarian doesn't
fun.
Forget, right?
No. There's so many things. And there are a lot of good times. That library was always and still is a very special place for me. And I hope they'll keep it for a lot more years.
Yeah.
I don't know what will happen, but they've downsized it very much since I was there. So.
In terms of the staffing, or in terms of the actual
hours? They've cut the hours back, which is sad, because if you don't have the hours, you're not going to get the people. So they've cut back on the books. There's not as many books there. So it's I don't know.
It's a place you love.
That's another story.
Yeah. So if you were to do anything, if you had one wish for the town of Granby, if you had your magic wand and you could say, I would do this, independent of cost or maintaining it or maintaining hours, what would you do? What would be the one thing that you would? What would librarian Lila do?
Oh, that's a big loaded question.
It is. I didn't tell you about that one.
No, I can't answer the way I'd like to answer.
Yeah.
I would like to see a lot more done up at Cossett Library, because that's up in the north end of town.
Right.
And there are so many houses around there, and if they had more hours and a bigger parking lot there, where I understand that now they're going to buy that house next door to the library in the back, if they increase the parking lot there so that it's easier for patrons. They don't have to park over at the post office or wait until the post office is closed so they can park there. Build it up again like it used to be. So
you'd like to see a state-of-the-art 24/7 Cossett Library. That would be your magic wish. For I can understand that. It's a place you put a lot into.
It's been so special. It has been so special. And all the people, I have so many friends from there, both adults and children.
Yeah.
And I had so many good times there, not just working, but our fairs and things we do, programs that we had. and the whole thing, it really was special. And the thing of it was, when my children were in school, whether I was close enough that they could call me if they had any problem. They could call me, and I was home in 5 minutes to see what was going on or anything. That didn't happen very often. I think a few times they were afraid to call me, but but I could, because the upstairs librarian would cover both up and down for me.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So, and again, this was when we could do as we wanted there.
Right.
And I was conscientious. I didn't take time off like that. In fact, I put in a lot more hours than I got paid for, because I was just there. But
you committed.
Anyway,
you loved it. It was good for.
But anyway, it was fun.
Now, if you, we know what you were. If it was, is there anything you would change that about the way things? I mean, looking back to the time when you first came and seeing the development and all the things, is there anything you would do differently in the town? Is there anything you would have done, or changed, or a decision?
You mean government-wise, or any?
Well, decision-wise. I mean, the town and the center's developed a certain way. The outlying areas have developed a certain way. You have your protected areas, or you have your.
I can't say that I've really thought about that too much. I just for what they do, they do.
Right.
There might have been times that I was wishing they didn't do this or didn't do that, but once it's done, you get used to it, and
it fades.
That's it. Yeah.
What's the any characters from that era that you remember? I mean, you dealt with a lot of people. Characters, like people in the town that you remember, or you think back that were unique, or I mean, they're all unique, but I mean.
Well, I don't know what kind of characters you mean. I just think of ones that were like Arlene Mooney's father was always at the town meetings, and he always had ideas, and he was a very forceful man of what he wanted to see or what he didn't want them doing in town. And I guess he always got talked down or told to sit down or something like that. I don't know,
he was
that kind of character. But I'm trying to think.
Well, that's one.
There were characters in town, but
just thinking
offhand, I can't think of.
No, that era. I mean, that was they still had they still had the town meetings for everything. That was before they went to the town manager.
Yeah.
The town manager in Granby came in fairly early, right? I mean, in the 70s, was it? Or no?
Before that, I went through quite a few of them. I remember with the town managers. Well, that was another thing up there at the library. I had mowed the lawns at times up there.
Okay.
And then always had to shovel the snow.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Come in and shovel it out?
Done. No, and I remember once. What was it? Once I wanted them to do the snow, and the town manager was a Mr. Edwards. And I called him up and told him there's a lot of snow there here at the Casa Library. And I said, I need somebody bigger than me to shovel it. And he says, where? I said, at the Casa Library. He says, well, this is the town. You know you're calling the town hall. I says, yeah, I know. The Casa Library is the town building. He didn't know, the town manager didn't know Casa Library was a town building.
Oh, no.
And then another time when I was covering the snow, they had piled it in front of the sidewalk, and it had frozen from the snowplow, and it had frozen, and it was a big heap, and I could not break through that to get through, so I called down there, and at that time, Dave Russell was the town manager, and so I called down there and told him, well then, the downstairs, I have just the yellow glass windows that I couldn't see out. The upstairs librarian called down to me, and she says, oh, there's a young blonde boy out there shoveling the snow. So I went upstairs and looked. It was Dave Russell himself.
Oh, no.
The town manager came up. She didn't know him. She didn't know he was town manager, but Dave...
He took it under his own initiative to do that, right?
And he was young. I think he was in his 20s when he was town manager here. But I still remember that. Oh, there's a young blonde boy out there shoveling.
So you got to see the town prior to having a town manager, when it was more like the traditional New England. You have in East Granby, where you have the town meeting for almost everything.
I guess Don Flannery was the town manager when I came.
Okay. And
then there was, maybe Dave Russell was after that. I don't know. And then Lou Dow and this Mr. Edwards and Otto Newman and Bill Smith has been the longest.
Yeah.
He's a good guy. I like Dave. I like Bill too.
So if you were the changes that have happened, and the changes that haven't happened, because some of it's remained the same. The big question for everybody who's come into town is the character of the town. Would you say it's pretty much stayed the same in that period of time? I mean, you've been here for 57. The overall flavor of the town. Would you say that it's retained it, or is it changed?
Well, it certainly has grown. It's in all ways, and for the better, I guess. And as I said before, I'm just so happy that they're keeping farms and land for parks where everybody can enjoy it.
Right.
And like the Holcomb Farm and
that's all come about since you've been here.
Yeah.
That was all.
So, and then there's a historical society too. They've done a lot. That's a beautiful historical society in town with all their buildings and all the things they have and all their volunteers. I can't say enough good about them too, preserving the history of Granby.
So other than the magic wand question, is there anything else you'd like to see in town? Anything that's not here that services?
Not at my age. I just go along with the flow.
But not a different coffee shop or a different grocery store or anything. I'm just saying, generic question. Is there anything you'd like for convenience or for pleasure or anything?
Well, we could use a few. Well, I have to admit I enjoy the pizza places, but 6 or 7 pizza houses is a little much in town, it seems.
Yeah.
But we have a Chinese restaurant, which I like the Chinese food, but I love a Chinese buffet kind of a thing.
Style restaurant. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, to all your budding
like
business people out there.
Yes. But and then some of the I don't like to put names, but the great big grocery stores, I like the smaller grocery store,
right.
like Eisler's, because I know where everything is. I know people in there. I can walk through there. They're always happy. Well, any store I go to in town, the people are good and happy.
You were in town when weren't they going to put a Walmart in where Stop and Shop is?
Yes.
Now, what were your feelings on that? I mean, that was a few years back, but how did you...
I didn't care. I didn't know what the big deal was. At the time, I think there was going to be a big Walmart with like a hardware store, and because of Beeman's, I like Beeman's very much.
Right.
I didn't think we needed a Walmart.
Okay.
But I wasn't dead set against it. If it happened, it happened.
You weren't picketing out in front of it?
No, I wasn't picketing.
All right.
I'd like a nice ice cream store. That would be great to have in town.
Okay.
Where you could go and something like the Summer House up in Southwick, that kind of a thing.
Okay.
That's a great business up there, and we do go up there quite a bit because we can get a light something to eat, and my husband likes his ice cream after, so we have to go up there to get his ice cream all the time.
So we haven't talked much about your husband. Any stories you'd like to share about?
Oh no, we've been very happy. I have no.
What was his name?
Charlie.
Okay, I don't
Yeah,
think we actually mentioned
Charlie. He's 92.
Okay.
And still going strong.
Okay.
He's got to be out at the barn all the time doing something. He's got machinery or equipment out there, his tractors and mowers and this sort of thing. And he likes to putter and make things out of wood. He reads all the time, constantly, always a book in his hand. And he's still designing things. He has a few patents from when he worked at combustion. His last job was at combustion engineering. He did get a few patents there.
Okay.
And he worked at Hamilton a long time. He was always in the, except for combustion, he was in aircraft. He worked at Chance Vought, Sikorsky, Hamilton Standard, and Command Aircraft. He worked at all of them.
Wow, so he made the circuit of UTC.
Yeah, he liked
Was
that.
Command, is Command part of UT? No.
Is
Command,
what?
Is Command's independent? That's,
They're not part of United.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, are there any other stories from your 50 plus years in town that you'd like to share? Anything that you remember that...
In town?
Yeah.
Well,
60 plus years, I'm sorry. Not used to...
61 years with the same man, wow.
Yeah, almost 60. 50, yeah. You've been married 61 years.
Oh, we're married 50. We've been married 61 years.
Right.
We're coming up 62.
Okay. It's amazing.
No, it's been a good marriage. And as I say, we've raised 4 good kids, and we've been happy. And as I say, they're all doing fine. We've got 4 nice grandchildren.
Yeah.
My son has a son who just graduated from the University of Minnesota. He's out in the state of Washington now. And a granddaughter who is, she graduated from UConn.
Okay.
But she's still doing more schooling. And then I have a 15-year-old granddaughter. Victoria is in East Windsor. She's a sophomore and an honors student. And then Arthur is her brother is Arthur, the youngest. He's 12, and he's an honors student too in the middle school over in East Windsor. So they're all doing good. And what can I say?
Quite a group. Just thinking back over those years, any other stories? And I'm not pushing. I'm just saying, is there anything about any stories in the last 50 years that you wanted to share with our audience?
Of here or?
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
Anything about Granby?
We've been building. We built our. That's another thing you asked what I did with the children. We built up in Massachusetts. We built a small house. My husband and I, a camp.
Okay.
But it's a small house. From all the time we had the 4 children. Every weekend we went up there and we sawed and nailed every board, and we didn't have any generator. Every saw was by hand, and every nail went in with the hammer. No electric anything.
Right.
And it's only about. I'm guessing 10 years ago that Charlie wired the whole house that we had electric. We didn't have electric. But the kids would go up there with them, and the first that we'd be there a half hour, he and I trying to work on the building part, and the kids are, when are we going to the lake? When are we going to the lake? So
whereabouts in Massachusetts?
It's near Great Barrington.
Okay.
In Sandusfield.
Okay.
Sandusfield.
Yep.
So it's just far enough apart that we could go up there, and we'd stay there, and that was another fun part of our life. And the kids got to swim and fish and kayak, and
that's great. Yeah, that was kind of the standard vacation back in that, in the 50s and 60s, even further back, because a lot of little houses in East Granby and Heartland were summer homes for people that lived in Hartford. Or that's. It seems like a lot.
Yeah,
of
they went back to the 30s and 40s, some of the little summer homes.
Yeah.
But ours, we still have it. It's up on the mountain there. We got to go up there, check it out. But we'd go up there and stay for a few days. And
it's a good retreat.
We stayed longer when the kids were small because they loved it up there.
Yeah,
again, this was out in nowhere. It was like in the woods.
Right. So, but it was fun.
So, yes. Yeah. So.
Now, if you had advice, you have 4 grandchildren. You interacted with thousands of children over your years as a librarian, I'm sure. Is there any advice you'd give kids growing up today? Any words of wisdom from the The Cosset librarian?
Just be honest with yourselves and with everything. Get all the schooling you can get, and I don't know how to word it all. It's good to family and to friends. I don't know.
Be decent and get a good education.
Yeah, the schooling and the education, as much as you can get. Yeah, okay. Yeah. And don't fool around in school. Don't try to be the big shot and the know-it-all. Just go along and do as you're supposed to do, and follow the rules, even if you don't like it.
So you've seen a lot of kids grow up. You've seen. I mean, you'd
yes.
Those are the virtues that you found were the predictors of the happiest.
I always success. Read when they have the honor rolls in the high school. The kids, I think most of the kids I had are seniors by now in high school.
Okay.
There may be a few juniors too, but that's about the age there too. Anyway, but then I hear about, I still at Christmas time hear from a lot of them.
Do you really?
The parents, and the parents will write and tell me what the kids are doing, where they are, and or if I meet them on the street here, and I just love it.
So the kids that were serious about their schoolwork were not...
A lot of them were ones that went to the library. They went to the library regularly. They were good students.
Okay.
But you can blame that. I'm not taking credit for that, because the parents were the ones that had to bring them to there to begin with. So the parents did the right thing. And then I still think of when we'd get big boxes, especially when I was volunteering at Wells Road School. I had the desk and typewriter at home, and I'd bring books home to process them to put in the library. And my kids just delighted in having these boxes of brand new books to go through and read.
Right.
Yeah, so, well, don't do this one yet, Mom. I got to read it before you take it back to school.
Right.
I read fast.
Well, it sounds like your kids had quite an experience because of that too. So. Well, Lila, that wasn't too bad, was it?
Well, I don't know. I could see the repeat of it.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Yeah. We appreciate you coming out and joining us here tonight.
Now that's over with.
Oh, no, it was a pleasure. Yeah. And I'd like to thank our audience viewing this show, sharing Lila Innes's story with us tonight. And once again, you can view this on Channel 16. Our regular time is 8 p.m. on Friday night, GCTV. It's also available online, Granby Community, gctv16.org, and you can pull up all of our programming. And we, once again, thank you for joining us tonight.